I've been talking that whole time without sound. That was wonderful. Hello. I'm going to do that again. My cast is all snickering in the background. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that, guys. I'm here now to tell you, welcome to Lost. Get lost. I should get lost right now. Wow. Okay, I'm going to take a deep breath here. Recoup. I'm just too excited for this show. I'm too excited. I'm watching Bueller in the background laughing and enjoying that. And Dave's falling off his chair. Stay strong, Dave. This is Get Lost, and it wouldn't be my channel if we weren't making fun of me in some way. This is our series Get Lost. I've got a whole playlist linked for you below, so please check them out if you've somehow missed some of this glory. We are here to talk about the finale of Lost, one of the more controversial episodes of television ever. I hope you are excited for the crew we have here to join tonight. All people who have discussed previous seasons and episodes on this panel. And we brought everybody back who had finished the show. That means Perry has been kicked off. He's doing his own stream at the same time because he never finished it. He never watched the final seasons. Thank you to all of you who are coming here in the chat, and I'll do a little hello to everybody. But first, I want to bring in my panel. I'm going to start us off with the man who started this series off. Bueller, how you doing, brother?
Dude, I just had a flashback. Okay, this is the flashback. Tell me if I'm wrong. That season premiere, season 4 or 5, when after the blast and they're all like scattered and stuff, wow. And you can't hear nothing, and everyone thought it was their TV set. I know you did. I know I was like, man, there's something wrong with the volume, and you're trying to figure it out. No, it's actually the show, and then you realize you're hearing the sound that Kate is hearing. Right. That's what, we just had that moment, and it's fitting for this episode.
Intentionally did this, of course.
Yes, I'm happy to be here, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me at the very beginning, and here I'm at the very end, and there was a bunch of people in the middle. Good
right?
times. Yeah.
Speaking of which, we've got Dave from Mr. Miracle Comics, my season 3 homie. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on, John. Nice to see you, Travis. So yeah, we have the final episodes of Lost. I mean, controversy is the word that, if you Google Lost final episode, all it's going to be is, was it good? Was it bad? Is it controversy? Right. Well, let's talk about it. Let's
do it.
You figured. Because, I haven't been here since May. That's when we did season 3.
It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. Bueller knows I do not run on any kind of schedule.
Hey, we all got lives. We all got to do what we got to do, right? Whatever happened.
Absolutely. Now you're talking. Let's bring another panelist in here. We got Luke from Hydra Collectibles. Luke, if you don't know, is up at 3 o'clock in the morning in the UK. He is here to talk Lost. Obviously, one of the biggest fanatics for Lost I have ever found. Look at the collection around him. Luke, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me back. It's nobody should do it alone.
Great. I definitely appreciate your support on that. And if you don't know Luke, his channel, like all these gentlemen's channels, is linked down below. He is just starting up a channel and hopefully will be in force in the community this year. He's also got a lot of really cool collectibles. He might show us a few like he's doing there next to him that he sells these replicas if you want to check them out. So we'll get into that in a little bit. I got to bring in the next gentleman. We got Kenny, Comic Head 84.
That's right. We had to come back and talk about the finale.
Live together, die alone.
Ain't that the truth?
And we are here in force doing that. I know Perry's claiming in the chat that he somehow watched the final episodes. I'm saying malarkey on that. I know that's an old man's word, but this boomer is throwing that at him in his face. So before I get into the chat, we are missing a gentleman who should be here. Fire Guy Ryan is unable to be at his computer tonight to join us. And I'm bummed about that because he's been a big part of this all the way through. And we definitely should be doing this as a group. When they go back to the island, they have to go back together as a group. And I've been teasing my Instagram all day because We did go back
No.
together.
Oh,
What?
Hi. What's up?
What?
look at
Fire
that.
guy Ryan is here at my house for the whole weekend, and part of the reason we waited to do this episode was knowing that we'd have one less camera to have to deal with tonight, and Fire Guy could be here in person to chat about it with me.
Yeah.
But I did invite
It's
you all over
intense.
tonight, but you didn't take the invitation.
Right? So for those of you wondering what all my crazy little teases of what's come into the box, there's a giant box on this island, and whatever you want to be in it could be in that box. This is what came out.
I was
of
in the box.
Ryan was in the box
Jeez, no.
this whole time, and now he's here to talk about Lost. And we're going to be doing a lot of shows this weekend, so you can catch us bouncing all over the YouTube community doing crazy shenanigans this weekend. But yes, it's not John's Comics with Kids. It's John's Comics with Fire Guy tonight.
I'm a kid today, or all days.
He was watching Frozen with my daughter.
We did watch Frozen.
like 10 minutes ago.
Frozen 2. I was totally confused.
Yeah, he hadn't seen Frozen 1, so he was really lost.
Yes, I'm sure.
So let me jump into the chat and just say a little quick hello to everybody who is here. I saw Glitter and Duct Tape and Life with Two YouTubers were here right off the bat. Sam's Tangled Web dropping some green hearts so that the other half of the BS show. JP is in the chat. Comic Tom was ready to roll. He loaned out Fire Guy this weekend. Much appreciated.
That's right. Yeah, I'm on loan.
Nice.
Backseat Driver Junior is in the chat. Patrick Wall. Yes, I'm going head to head with Perry tonight. I don't know that my Lost show is going to compete with his late night shenanigans, but quality over quantity is what I'm going for here. Fuchsia Only and Ben Compton, thank you guys for coming by. TJ says, it seems I've been waiting for this episode longer than the series was on. Fair point. 36 Chamber Tattoo Studio. Robert Curry, One God Tank. Metaphorical. Meta has been dropping some great videos in the community lately, and he's going to be on a book club next week on my channel, so stay tuned for that. Backseat Driver, I think I already said hello to you, but I'll do it again. How you doing? And my panel, Mr. Miracle's in the chat. I saw Hydra's in the chat. So you can click on their channels and go to the link over to sub to their channels if you want. Or, like I said, they're in the description for this video. Gore Vidal is in the chat. And Biggie Shack. Perry's lurking, claiming that he's watched it, but I don't believe it. D-Runk, Old Wolf. Awesome folks are out here. I think everybody is in here. Holy cow. Thank you all for coming by. Hack is in the chat. And I'm moving my way down. Steve Whiting. I do agree. It's a hell of a panel because, this is a big, big episode. And I've been looking forward to getting into it with these guys for sure. Stay Puff, Southern Comic Geek. Thank you for coming by. And of course, there is Comic Head 84. Everybody's in there. If you want to sub or check one of their channels out, I wholeheartedly recommend this lot. Lost lost me a quarter of the way through season 2, but I like this panel. Thank you, J Hood. That's very kind of you to say. So I'm going to start with Bueller. Bueller, when you first watched this episode, this finale, versus maybe when you've watched it, whenever it was most recently, how are your feelings compare between those two viewings?
Well, first off, I don't understand how Ryan is now at your house, but yet has never been to my house. He literally lives a couple hours away. What the hell, man?
I
What is
tried to go
going
to your
on?
house last year, but there was a darn snowstorm.
That's true. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So
Yeah, that was rough.
it's good to see you. But no, seriously, about the episode, I felt the same way, to be honest with you. I mean, I remember, obviously I was into it more when the show was going on a weekly basis, and it was much more dedicated. But when I recently rewatched it again, I kind of saw it. Well, I remember when I watched it very first, I kind of saw it coming and kind of knew kind of where they were going. At least that's what I thought they were going to do. And pretty much that's what they did it. You kind of figured it out halfway through season 5, exactly what's going on. And they kind of closed it out pretty much how I anticipated them doing it. So I was very satisfied myself with how they closed it out. But watching it back this time around, I think I just watched it last week. I think I appreciate it more, to be honest. I think I appreciate that type of storytelling on television more so than I do now, because I don't think we get that as much, at least on network television. We don't get that type of detail on network stuff anymore. It's mainly on pay channels and stuff like that. So it's so sad. It's so sad that it's over. I wish it kept on going, to be honest with you. But it was from start to finish. I love the series, every episode, except for the one with the stripper girl and the other guy.
Yeah, that Jack flashback with the tattoos.
Yeah, that's the only one. So there you go.
Dave, what about you? Comparing the first viewing to the most recent, how did you feel about this finale?
Well, I remember watching it on network television for sure. And then, I remember thinking it was pretty good. I was pretty happy with this episode, at the time. But as we've rewatched it, it's been a binge watch, right? So you don't take those season after season, year after year to get to this one point. It only takes a few days or a few weeks or whatever. I usually watch Lost when I have the flu. It's kind of my go-to. I'll binge watch the entire thing.
It's comfort food. It's like chicken soup or something, right?
It is, right? And when you're all sick and in delirium, Lost is perfect. It's like, oh yeah, this works. I understand now. But anyway, so when you watch it in the sort of the binge aspect of things and everything happens, you can remember so much from those other episodes in that final episode, so much more than I could watching it week to week. You know what I mean? So you're like, oh yeah, that thing, and oh right, and that. So I see more in it, so I appreciate it more. But I mean, I remember being kind of like jaw dropped a little bit when I first saw it. You know what I mean? When it was first presented on. So I'd say there's
the shock value versus the attention to detail.
Exactly. Like now I can kind of dissect it, right? Because I can take a look at all those episodes still fresh in my head. Whereas the other time I was trying to remember stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then, you're paying more attention to the finality rather than the minutia. Does that make sense?
I totally agree. Yeah. What about you, Luke? Obviously, you might have watched this more than even I like to think I've watched these episodes a ton, but I think you might have even watched them more than me. When was your most recent watch?
Most recent watch of the finale was today. Technically yesterday, at about 11 o'clock last night for me. So yeah, that was the last time I watched it. I absolutely loved this show. When it first aired, obviously over here in the UK, they aired it the exact same time as over in the States. So again, I had to get up super early to watch going to work.
Wow.
Didn't want to miss out. Then luckily, because I stayed up to watch it so early, I'd go to work, have all the first initiations and first talks about it, then come home and watch a rewatch of it that was airing that evening.
Wow.
I got to watch it twice when it first aired. It wasn't what I expected the first time round, but still surprisingly emotional. I was always of the impression of Daniel Faraday's theory of, you throw a rock and it creates two different time streams. And I thought these are two time streams that are going to merge together. To then realize that was a form of purgatory in that season, very shocked, but very enjoyable. It was, to me, it was a good surprise, not a bad surprise as some people see it.
Sure. All right. So Kenny, Comic Head, when did you see this episode most recently?
I think it was yesterday. I think I rewatched that episode.
Look at you guys. I love it.
Yeah, man. Once I knew duty called, I was like, all right, let me get ready. But as far as how I watched the show initially, I had a group of friends that put me onto it, like when season 2 was on DVD. Because I used to go over the house and they'd be watching the DVDs of it. And I remember just getting real intrigued by it. Ended up binging 1 and 2 on DVD, and then season 3 started live on television. And then from that point, I always did like a Lost watch party type thing from pretty much 3 on with this group of friends. We were all about Lost, and we used to chop it up and talk about theories. And that's why I really have a special place for Lost, because like during that period, just this little crew of friends, we had so much fun, like even beyond just sitting and watching the show. Like we were always chatting about it in between episodes and in between seasons. So it was
there's like a community thing to it, right?
Yeah, man, it really was. So I really do get a kick out of it. But as far as when we live watched the finale, you know, once we got to, I think that the first like 3 seasons of Lost, maybe 4, is like really some of the best television I've watched. And I think the back 9, dude, of Lost, particularly the last season, fell off for your boy. And during that last season in that watch, it was, it didn't crescendo into a big joyous finale. We all high-fived and celebrated the show. It was, a little want. So I will probably be the voice of dissent in this chat.
I would say you could argue the voice of the Vox Populi or whatever, the popular voice, because it seems to be at least the loudest voice that you hear when in reference to this.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm sure we'll get to that part. I don't come at it, I don't think, from the same angle as a lot of the haters, because I do appreciate the show very much. But there were some key things, not so much direct critiques of the finale episode, more of the last season.
Sure.
I know for me, you and I just did a stream about season 6, everything but the finale. So yesterday as well, I went and watched the finale by itself yesterday, and it's the first time I've ever watched just the last episode by itself. And I think when you watch it in isolation, that makes a difference, at least for me, because I didn't have the baggage, what I would call baggage. I would kind of agree with our friend Kenny here that the final season it's my least favorite out of all 6. I still really like it, but I think if you take the finale out and just look at the rest of the episodes, it's not as good. And the final part helps kind of tie it all together, and it kind of rescues the season for me in a way.
As far as the sideways universe, you mean, and kind of what that meant to the year.
All the resolution. I was watching it yesterday, and they're having those cheesy flashes where they're remembering their past, and
yeah,
you got to stay strong. But there's a little bit of feelings there.
Sure.
For the Kate stuff, I didn't care for didn't care for the Kate one.
I will say I went and kind of looked at the ratings for the season, and obviously this was the season that had kind of the lowest ratings overall, but the finale had pretty high ratings, and I was struck by the thought that like there were people out there who would skip a few years of this show and then roll into the finale and watch it cold. And for me, that seems to be at least a significant portion of the hate group that exists in my mind. I feel like there's a large group of people that gave up on the show, thought, you know what, I'm going to watch the finale just to see how it ended. And we're like, what in the heck am I watching? This thing's a mess. And then that became their speech, And I feel like that was an unfair critique of the show.
I didn't like how they did the.
Somebody's turned on their phone. Sorry.
I didn't like how they did the episode before the season finale. Somebody's got
YouTube up on one of their phones. Something just happened. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Yep. Everyone should mute themselves. Isolate the culprit.
Yeah.
Did you hear it? Yeah. I'm still talking. I don't know. Oh, I think it's there, Luke. I think something was going on with Luke. Yeah.
Something with me?
Yeah.
You, Luke.
There's nothing else running.
Something new is going on over there. I don't know.
This is the Lost episode.
All right, I'm just muting you for a second, Luke. You can tinker with it for a second. Sorry, Bueller, you were saying?
The second to last episode was the episode, the backstory between the light and the dark, Joshua and.
Yeah.
I didn't like how they set that up. I thought that episode should have been different during the season, like earlier, maybe, because it kind of took a little bit of the momentum out of the season finale, because you literally had a break before the season finale of a episode that could have been fitted anywhere else. I remember watching that thinking, man, I wish it just sort of went straight through, and because the season finale was 2 hours long, and if you had that build up, from the cliffhanger and not have that week gap, what it did,
right?
I thought it would have been more impactful. One thing I did notice when I watched it again, I didn't care as much about what was going on the island itself. I actually enjoyed more what was going on in the purgatory type part and the reconnection and kind of where they were going and how they were going to handle it. Because there was so much build up to the finale and how they're going to do it, and there's still debate today on what it was type thing, and they really kind of built themselves into a corner how they were going to present it. And I thought they actually did a pretty good job. I thought they shot themselves in the foot when they had that after scene for no reason, and that confused a lot of people. You know what was going on. They had the
at the credits. The credits.
Yeah. I think that was a dumb thing to do, and it just muddied the waters, and caused a little bit more stir than it needed to. Because like I said before, I really enjoyed the finale. But I did like I said, more so the church and all that stuff and the alternate timeline than I did the island stuff going on, because I kind of knew what was going to happen on there as well.
Sure. I'll start with Dave, but like when you think about a finale, what are your expectations when you think of this is any series that you've really enjoyed? What are your expectations on those creators when it comes to a good finale? What do you hope from a finale?
Well, I guess you got to tie up these loose ends, and there were so many loose ends with Lost. And I know that the cancellation of the show kind of got sprung on the writers, so there's a lot of stuff in season 6. I think it's kind of rushed because they needed to. But yeah, I don't know. Like, what do I expect? Like, if I'm thinking of like a really good finale that ties everything together, I always like Babylon 5's final. You know, I thought that one really tied everything together. Whereas if you look at the Lost one, there was some big holes that just never got explained, and I don't mind that so much either. I don't necessarily want everything handed to me. Like, I'm not the hugest fan of the Breaking Bad final episode because they tied everything up. Like, they left nothing to mystery. Everything was tied up into a package, no questions left. And that kind of disappoints me when you're left just like, oh, okay, well, it's totally over. Right.
So somewhere between explaining everything for you and yet leaving things untied.
Yeah, like I don't need the writers to be like, this is everything, right? Like I can handle some mystery. I can have some stuff that's like, no, we're not explaining that to you guys. You think of it. Like, use your imagination a little bit. Everything doesn't have to be spoon-fed to you all the time. Right?
Sure.
However, I don't like big plot holes that could have been explained instead of having all these little sideways shifts into this odd life. And I'm like, why are you showing me this? Tell me why there's a polar bear. No, you don't. Or tell me, why does the smoke go? Why does the man in black turn into the smoke monster in daylight? Explain that. Don't tell me that fucking, this guy became a cop and this guy had surgery and from another guy. I don't care about that. I want to know what happened in the island.
I will say one of the things and I'm going to unmute Luke here and see if nope, the sound is still doing it there, Luke.
Pop out and come back in.
Yeah, well, it might be that you need a earbuds if you're using your phone, or I don't know.
All right, let me check.
One of the things that was cool about the stream with Luke was when he went through the details of the polar bear, because there were parts of that just blew my mind, where he had clearly seen more in it and understood it on a layer that I hadn't, where he was like, oh, well, the polar bears are there to move the island. That's why the polar bears are on the island. Yeah, they are the ones trained to turn the donkey wheel, and to survive and to survive and be in the cold, because whoever turns the donkey wheel leaves the island and appears in the middle of the Tunisian desert, which is why they find the polar bear skeleton and the collar in the middle of the Tunisian desert. These are the polar bears lost over the years of whenever they moved the island. Yeah, I was just blown away by that whole concept. Of course, you'd need an animal that could survive the cold. You'd need to train and teach them how to do it by teaching them to push this button and push that lever and get your food pellets. And, you would need to teach them to do these things.
Okay, but look, like, you were a particularly big Lost fan. You had a blog and everything, bud. Like, you were all over it, right? Like, you were more of a Lost fan than I am, and I enjoy it quite a bit. Luke is on another level. You just think of the average American viewer turning in and going, what the living hell am I watching? They're not going to put polar bears and moving the island together.
It took, honestly, I had pieces of it, and he and I agree. It was a lot to piece together. I agree.
If you can't figure it out without some super fan helping you out, the average guy isn't going to do it either, John. And so when I was watching that, I was like, stop with these sideways stuff. I get it, but it was too much.
I would say that bothered me. I haven't given my opinion, I guess, but the sideways universe stuff, as much as I did think it was powerful and there were emotional bits that like, wow, that was intense. Getting to see certain of those moments, it felt like a far too significant portion of the season.
Yeah,
where they were giving way, in my opinion, too much time to that universe, to the point where I even felt like, why do we need to have Jack have a son? Like, what is the function of that? Like you couldn't Jack's story have gone on without a kid? Like, what is the? Because in the end, the kid, if you notice in the finale, just kind of disappears. There's no point to him. He's just gone. He gone.
Yeah. He didn't go to heaven apparently.
Yeah, and well, he didn't exist except in his subconscious as like a projection or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's get to Luke, because Luke, for you, what is a finale success, and how would you compare this finale to finales that you think have what you think it needs?
Okay, well, first of all, I think that Game of Thrones owes Lost an apology.
Right.
I think for how popular Game of Thrones was, I think if all those fans moved over to Lost, they, there'd be a whole new appreciation. You mentioned about Jack's son. I too, when the first time I watched it, I thought, okay, yeah, pretty pointless. What was the point of that? But then I guess it's to do with the whole father-son dynamic, the relationship that he had with his father, and because it's purgatory, you're working through your things.
Yeah.
The son was an important aspect for him. On the same logic, what is Aaron doing as a baby in that church? That baby doesn't exist.
Shouldn't he have grown up and be an adult?
Exactly.
Exactly. I agree. That's a great one.
I think one of the more interesting points of this is obviously Desmond. The rules of the universe don't apply to Desmond, and with the time travel that we've seen throughout the seasons involving Desmond, it does make sense that he could go that much further into the afterlife. So
especially when I love the way I've always liked Desmond. He's always been one of my favorites, and the way they integrate him into all the seasons, I've really enjoyed. And this particular season, watching him get pushed into that machine, which is clearly on another level. Of course, it would push his abilities or whatever to another plane, if you will. So I loved the fact that he became the linchpin that helped to awaken a lot of these people. I liked all of that idea. And that he, of course, would be the divine rod or whatever, I liked that. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's, to me, the Flash sideways, just treat them more like Flash far forwards, And then once you start looking at it from that perspective, it kind of makes a bit more sense. And then when you analyze each character, Lost is very much a character-driven show, and so all of these Flash sideways really do hone in on those characters' weaknesses. It's the stuff that they are working through before they can pass over. So the more I watch the season finale, the more I fall in love with it. Gets more and more emotional as I get older, and the more I watch it.
Sure. All right, Kenny, how about you? Finales, what quality finales do you think of, and where do you think this fits for you?
Sure. I think finale episodes, especially of really popular shows, are really difficult to pull off well. So it's always like empathy for the writings team
mirroring each other
that needs to do that. Now that I don't mean final seasons. You should be able to pull off a final season, but a final episode is supposed to be the signature at the end of the letter. I get it. That's tough, man.
It's hard, right? I was going through a list in my head trying to think of the best ones, and it was a short list.
Yeah, for me, Breaking Bad does come to mind. I know I get what Miracle's saying about it is nice when you get resolution and you get that little bit of wondering to prompt a little discussion. And you're right, they really did tie up the whole story. But I think what it did good, at least something that a finale should do, a series finale should do, like most quality shows should have like an initial kind of like thesis statement to what the show is. And hopefully the show has kind of made that statement throughout the show. And in the end, just really crystallize it. Like The Wire comes to mind of, even though there's no like huge moment per se, the way it ended with like a dialogue-less scene spanning through the city of Baltimore was maybe one of the most brilliant, because that's what the story was. The show was, we're going to paint this picture of every aspect of the city of Baltimore, from the paper to the schools to the ghettos to the police to everything.
The dock workers, and I totally agree.
They painted you this like really nice mosaic of the city, and to just end with just Baltimore was the ending character that they ended with. In McNulty, he's the man. That's a really good one, and I'm also a big fan of the Sopranos ending too.
Oh, okay. I got no more to say now. I love you. I love you.
We're vibing. Yes.
I'm in the wrong house.
Yeah, fact.
Come on over. Sopranos is a great ending. So
the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, as far as so finales, and last thing I'll say. So I don't think we're gonna dig into analysis of the episode yet, right? But
yeah, we'll do that next. Yeah.
So I won't get into that. But one thing I'll say about the Lost finale is one thing I wasn't necessarily looking for, because I could tell as we were getting towards season 6, and the show was based on feeding you mysteries, and the mysteries themselves. It was more about the questions than the answers. You kind of get that sense as you go, and I get it. Scratching your head over questions is part of the fun. Fine. I knew I wasn't going to get the answer to every single one, because they dropped the baker's dozen on you every episode. So I'm like, how are you going to tie up all these? No way you can. So it just became a matter of which mysteries or questions really mattered and which ones didn't. Like, to me, like a polar bear one, I did read that after the fact on some forum. I didn't know the polar bear thing, like just from watching it. But that would be one that I put in the if you don't totally answer it. It was part of the experiment. I could just. And
to Bueller's point, that Across the Sea episode that was like preceding it was another, like, not only Baker's dozen, but like Baker's million of questions. I felt like it opened so many cans of worms that was like, where's the show? How did the show possibly follow that with like something successful that was focused, like you're saying, on the crystallized theme of the series?
One point I hold to for Lost is Across the Sea is the worst episode of Lost. It's worse than Tabula, whatever, the flying a kite with the Asian lady. It's the worst. It was, to me, the nail in the coffin to the show. Because that was supposed to be, that was like the big answers question. Why is the island special? What's up with Jake and Man in Black? And they gave answers, unfortunately, and some, answers that I just didn't do it for me. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, let's get Bueller a chance for finales, and then we'll get Ryan in here, because obviously he's got to think of some other finales to talk about now that Kenny's took the best ones.
Well, from what I understand, if I'm not mistaken, I think after Lost season 3, they actually had a roadmap for the last 3 seasons. I mean, I think they said they were going, after season 3, they said, we're going 3 more seasons, and then the 6th season is the last. So they have the roadmap. Is that correct? I think that's what I heard.
That's what they said. That's what they said.
So they know where they were going. They just had to get there. And you can kind of tell, people kind of bag on the last season. They kind of ran out of where they could go, and the only thing they realized they could do was just to go sideways. We already went back and forth and all this stuff. The finale itself, I thought, tied up what I wanted to know, and this is the thing. From the very first episode of the series, there was so much speculation. Are they alive? Are they dead? That doesn't happen a lot on shows. I mean, literally the whole, are they alive? Is this really going on? Is this happening? That was a question from the first episode, and it lasted 6 seasons until you finally found out. Other shows don't have that long-going question like this. Am I really seeing what I'm seeing? You don't see that a lot. I compare that to, and this is a comedy, and John might remember this one, Newhart.
No.
Newhart, season finale or series finale.
He wakes up.
It was all a dream. There was other ones, but that one was a comedy, and that one was just classic. He wakes up with his wife from the previous show he did.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, there's a weird dream. It was all fake. And that was, a really popular show. That was very self-serving to the fans. I think a season finale should be a thank you letter to the fans that have stuck with them for 6 seasons. And for me, that's what I got from the season finale of Lost.
Nice. What about you? What do you got left to say?
I don't know, man. After finding out they were dead the whole time on the wire, like it was all a dream. The whole wire was all a dream. I'm thinking about like what Miracle said about like shows that wrap it up or shows that leave it open-ended, and I think Sopranos is probably my favorite example of an open-ended finale. And I personally gravitate more towards that stuff. Like it makes the finale matter more afterwards, like the questioning and the debate.
And like maybe this show lives on beyond the 4 walls of your 4 frames of the screen.
It reminds me of Watchmen. I think would be the most recent example. I think of a show that just ended like with a total question mark, and now that looks like the series finale. That's going to be all we get. And I respect those. I think a little more than the. As much as I do love the Wire ending, and I think it is perfection, I think a mystery, it wouldn't have worked for the end of the Wire though.
No.
But those are 2 different sides of the same coin.
Well, and I think the Wire ending, as much as it did seem to like revisit all the characters, it wasn't like it was wrapping up the story. It was very clearly showing this is going to keep going on. Like it's going to go on forever. It's a cycle, and there's no escape. And that's kind of the point.
So good.
You guys watch The Americans at all? That show, The Americans.
I haven't.
I need to.
Really, one of the best. They really stuck the landing better than most shows. The last season and the last episode is really strong on Americans.
And I think to your point, I think it's very rare that a show does that. And I was thinking back over the shows that I felt like the finale was among the best episodes that a show had done for me.
There's one show that hasn't been mentioned yet.
And Leftovers was the one that I mentioned to him, and it's another Damon Lindelof show. And I think if you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. And it was a show that I felt like the final season leading into that final episode was near perfection for me, and it wasn't where I thought it would go, yet also encapsulating, or to use your word, Kenny, it crystallizes what that show I think was all about from the beginning. So that one came to mind for me. And I mentioned also an older one like Bueller. I mentioned Quantum Leap. Well, I was a big Quantum Leap fan, and I loved the way that final episode built on all the themes the show had done, and then also had Sam, the main character, revisiting arguably his biggest failure jumping through time, which was not being able to save his friend's marriage or his friend's life, the trajectory of his life while he was a POW. And that moment when he gets to go back to a moment that was a horrible tearjerker, powerful tearjerker from early in the show, and try to right that wrong, I bawl every time I watch that episode. And it just, for me, it crystallizes the themes of the show.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an 80s classic
show. Yeah, I loved Quantum Leap. I don't remember ever seeing the finale.
Actually. Yeah, the finale has Sam, for the first time, his body jumps out of the waiting room where it's always been. And he basically is in a bar with God, and he's basically contemplating what he's been up to this whole time. And it comes to the idea that the only reason he hasn't been allowed, like the characters in Lost, to move on to wherever they're going to go after they leave the church is because he had one failure in his run traveling through time. And that was when he had been an undercover police officer, and Sam had been lied to by Al and sort of tricked into trying to save Al's marriage when that wasn't what he was there to do. And in the end, he had to just let his friend, who was a POW and his wife was going to remarry while he was in Vietnam, he had to let that happen. And he always felt horribly guilty about it. And God was basically saying, you deserve the chance to make this right. And he gets to go back to a day when Al's wife was really questioning whether her husband was alive, and convince him that, no, your husband's going to come home. You don't worry. You should stick this out. And then you get to see how that totally changes the rest of Al's life, he had gone on to become this alcoholic and all this kind of stuff. It was sort of a saving grace for the character.
Nice. That's a great show.
Welcome to the Quantum Leap recap show.
I'm happy to go. If that's where we're going next. Although I think Stay Puff is going to be very upset if we don't. If we don't get into the Wire at some point on this.
I couldn't disagree with you more on that Quantum Leap episode. I thought it was terrible that Sam just went off. He was like, "What? He doesn't come home? Fuck this show, man!" Like, I was little when that happened, and I remember being pissed.
Yeah. So let's talk about the episode itself, the things that were working or not working in this series. I guess it's technically like 3 hours, almost 3 episodes in the end. For you, Bueller, what were the things that you liked or didn't like in this hour or these hours?
Like I said before, I actually liked the sideways type thing. I liked all the everybody coming together and seeing those moments, you know. And actually, this kind of goes to the whole season. But I mean, I liked when they realized who each other was, and then to see them all in the church together, and because they're all sharing that moment because they all shared something major in their life together, and they all kind of get to do this together. And when I was watching, I was like, okay, I didn't know for sure if I was understanding what I was watching at the time. I kind of had to piece it together. And as I watched the episode, I go, okay, this is what this is. This is where they're at. They are now all deceased. They have all died in different time periods of their life. They've lived on, but they all go together because they shared that moment, and they're all the friend. Your family is waiting for you at the pearly gates, and this is the family before they go through the pearly gates. And that's kind of what I saw in there. That's what I enjoyed about the episode. I enjoyed the interaction between Jack and his father. I was bawling, man. I was bawling the words that his father was saying to him and stuff. I love another one. I love the fact that Ben decided not to go into church. And Hurley, turns out Hurley is the one who stayed on the island. And I would have loved to see a Hurley and Ben spinoff show. Man.
Right?
That would have been a buddy comedy on the Lost Island. That would have been fantastic. Anyway, those are my best memories of that.
Nice. What about you, Dave? What were some of your favorite highlights or maybe lowlights as well for this hour or these hours?
Well, I said there was some really good stuff about the episode. The acting performances were great. Lost has a lot of character drive to it, so you get really tied into the characters. So it was good to kind of see them all together and kind of moving on together kind of deal. I like that they did answer a lot of stuff, but some of it, like the sideways stuff, they could have done with half as much as that. Like they bulked up the show with all that stuff. I thought they could have spent more time on the island doing like mysterious stuff, explaining it up, rather than going to these sideways things. And the whole church scene, like, where was Walt? Where's Michael? Where was Mr. Abokodi? Or what was? How do you pronounce his name? Echo, right? But I'm thinking the actor's actual name.
Yeah, no. I think they call him Triple A, right? Because his name, he's like A.
Right. So where's Mr. Echo? What are you trying to say? Black people don't go to heaven? Like that kind of was like, wait a minute, guys. Where's all these awesome characters that were in the show? How come they're not here? I'm sure there had something to do with like actors negotiating or whatever that they couldn't be in the episode.
But Lost had that issue, I think, all along, where it seemed like, at least in some cases, that the actors with darker skin had shorter shrift to their stories.
Yeah.
Whether through contract issues or not, it seemed to be an ongoing issue.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess I never really noticed that. I just kind of noticed it in that final finale, and I was like,
sure,
where's all these other characters that are supposed to come back? I mean, they brought back characters like Shannon and stuff, like she was from season 1. I don't think it wrapped up enough. I don't think it, like, they laid out all these mysteries, and I don't think that they really, like Bueller was saying, like, it should be a love letter and a thanks to fans. Here's some fan fucking, we're gonna placate to you, give you what you want, tie it up, make you happy. We'll leave you a little few mysteries here so that you're still wondering, and we won't like just close the door like everything. And like I said, Breaking Bad, you knew there was an end because Walt died, right? And everything was tied up. I'm like, okay, end, right? I don't like that. I want to be able to think like other stuff may have gone on. So I did like that part of Lost, because even the sideways stuff, like when Jack is talking to his dad, you realize everybody's not in that church died at the same time in a plane crash.
Right.
Everything happened, and the dad confirms that. He says everything happened for real, And all these people are here, but you're just meeting here. All these people died before you, after you, at different times. You're just meeting here, right? So I like that. Like they all kind of got together based on this really important part of their lives.
Yeah, and I agree with you also that I think the best parts of the sideways stuff are the things that connect most directly to the island. Every time somebody awakens and they give you those 2-3 black and white sort of shots where they're remembering their relationship, and the Michael Giacchino music just kicks in, it's always like, oh dang, that one got me. That one got me, you know?
But like they could have taken a lot of that stuff out of there and just shortened those little sideways stuff up, and I think still have had a lot more impact, but have more island stuff. We spent 6 fucking years on this island. Tell me about the island. Don't put me in some weird alternate might have happened if the plane hadn't gone over the island situation, right? So that didn't work for me. So, you know, I was a little back and forth on this episode.
Sure.
Maybe it's just, you know, me, I don't really get teary-eyed at television. I always kind of have this, you know, disbelief of everything that's going on. So unless there's a really solid story to it, you know, you're not going to grab me by playing sad music and having stuff, right? I'll just be mad. I'll be like, stop that, you know.
That's hilarious. All right, Kenny, what about you, man? What was working for you or not working for you in these hours?
Yeah, so as far as what worked for me is, you know, I've always thought that Lost had one of the best casts out there, actor-wise. You totally grow to get attached to the characters and care about them and all that. And there's the acting performances, I guess, were good, you know. But what's ironic about the finale is the episode is fairly enjoyable as long as you don't ask questions. Because the more you start to ask questions to yourself in the finale, the more, to me, like the show just like kind of, the episode falls apart. What's happening? What's actually happening here falls apart. Like the characters, I don't like the flash sideways. I think it disconnected me from the characters that they felt different from the characters that I got invested in, honestly, because they're all super happy. They don't have baggage. Baggage is what made all these fucking characters so interesting. They took away all their baggage. And despite what they lead you to believe in that church, they weren't all best friends. They weren't all lovey-dovey. Jack's father was a dick. And he's like this guard. He's like God of St. Peter or whatever at the gates. Like, my son, Jack, I love you. This is a special moment. It's like, no, he's a raging alcoholic, POS. And don't change who he is. It was too much fan service. It took advantage, and hey, it worked on me a little bit it took advantage of the fact that I really loved the characters and the nostalgia, because at that point there's like nostalgia built in because all the years I was watching. Yeah. And they're, you know, flashing back to stuff from the past and these moments and these interactions with characters and stuff. So like, yeah, they were leaning more into, you know, our care for the characters and stuff more than giving us a good story, I think. Because, you know, what tied me into Lost were these interesting characters, the mysteries, and the whole sci-fi element. I was, you know, man of science and faith. I always leaned into, I just thought the science stuff was more interesting. I was always wondering what Dharma was up to. I was always trying to connect all the dots to that stuff.
I will agree completely that for me, like science and faith, I felt like science was more interesting, and it was given a shorter shrift in the final season because I felt like season 5 was made out to be a science-ish season and season 6 was more of a faith season. And I felt like it should have been more of a mixture in the finale. I agree.
And what really got me was, and I appreciated the fact that seemed to be like the thesis like of the show of science versus faith, right? Which I think that's interesting. Let's dig into that. That's cool. But towards the end, and why I think Across the Sea is the worst episode of the whole series is it turned into, it wasn't even faith. It was like magic. It became science and magic, like random ass magical spells. And I think Jacob is the worst character in the show also, because Jacob, he's like Dr. Manhattan all of a sudden. And he was too OP and he became a cheat code. He's a cheat code to explain all the mysteries.
I love the words you're using.
Where do the numbers? What do the numbers mean? oh, well, Jacob needed those numbers on his spinning wheel of come on down to save the island and protect it. And I still don't understand like why the island is so special. I don't. Him and the Man in Black, that was way too late in the game to introduce that. I think it was silly. It was too much. Jacob was too powerful. It turned into all these mysteries were just like, for some reason, Jacob was playing this elaborate game of putting all these pieces together to deliver messages. Weird shit. Saeed in the Lazarus Pit. Like it just got too out there for me, and there wasn't enough meat to it.
Sure.
So, and also, the Man in Black being John Locke in the last season was. I didn't really dig that either.
It's hard, right? Because you love John and you want to see John on screen, but you really get robbed of him for pretty much an entire season.
Yeah, and I feel like you also rob whoever this Man in Black guy was supposed to be, because they never really gave him much of a personality. They
didn't give him a name.
Hey, here's the craziest part, right? I'll end on this. What almost became laughable to me is it's protector of the island. If I'm to take away what I think they're telling us is the big mission was don't you dare let the Man in Black leave this island. If he gets out, brother, he's gonna run wild. I remember someone's like, what's gonna happen? It'll be the end. Alfred says. The end of what? The end of everything. What do you mean? Is he gonna nuclear bomb the world? All he talks about is that he wants to leave the island. He never says, I can't wait to get off this island so I can mass murder the planet. And like, what's his motivation? Why is he so evil? I thought he was sick of the island and he wanted to bounce and make a better life. Why is he gonna genocide the earth? Like,
that's hilarious.
Didn't need those kind of stakes. Like, chill. Those stakes are way too high. Like, relax.
He's making a list.
I think Luke's keeping track of all these things. He wants to. He's gonna debate. He's gonna debate.
I'm
looking forward to this.
Let's let Luke. So Luke, I mean, like I mentioned, there were definitely things I was really enjoying with this finale, and there were I agree with some of the stuff Kenny and Mr. Miracle are saying here, but for me, there were the emotional gut punches all the way through that were really interesting to me. I wanted to point out one that I had noticed and texted to Ryan the other day was rewatching it was as each character awakens, it's because of an interaction with another castmate, right? Another castaway. And they see each other's faces, they touch briefly, and it's like this reaction. And I love that everybody has those except Kate, who needs to basically look at a woman giving birth. So everybody else is like making eye contact. She's looking at a vagina and it's like, oh, I remember everything now. I'm back. Yeah. I feel like Kate gets the short shrift on that one. It's not just like I see the baby. It's like, no, it's just this. This is what I need to remind myself what's going on here. Just throw that out there, guys.
I love it.
This is John's Comics with Kids. Welcome back, folks.
Can I just say real quick, one of my least favorite parts of this entire show, which is one of my favorite shows in my entire life.
Is it me?
Is how many childbirth sequences there were in Lost.
There's a lot of births.
It drove me insane.
A lot of babies.
I don't need to see it twice a season. Like there was a kid being born twice a season in flashbacks or flash forwards or sideways. Just a lot of screaming and close-up grunting on people's faces.
It's worse in person, Ryan.
I'm sure it is. I hope you never experience that.
Trust me, man. It's worse in person. You go off easy.
That was like a nice little answer there.
All right, Luke. Sorry, we didn't really lead into you very well there. Sorry.
No worries. So yeah, where to begin? So science is just magic that we understand. And I believe that with the island and everything also mystical, the Dharma Initiative going there in order to find out how this stuff works and then unlocking certain answers. So yeah, magic being, science being magic that we understand. As for why the Man in Black was so evil, as per Jacob's words, I mean, that's just the opinion of Mother. That's just what he was taught, what he was told. And just like with everyone, whatever you're taught and told, that's how you live your life. Then we have why is everyone happy in the Flash Sideways?
Hey, but I'm curious, Luke. Do you think so? When you say that he was evil because that was the impression that Jacob had, do you think that he was in fact evil? If he got off the island, do you have any sense of what he was going to do?
I don't think he himself was evil at all. I think he was handed a deck of cards and he had to deal with it that way. You know, he just wanted to leave the island. She was very controlling, wanted him to stay. And I think that was just a lesson that was drummed into them.
Doesn't that harm the drama of the show if it was all just for nothing? Yeah. That they were spending all this time dying, fighting, and killing to stop a guy from doing something that didn't really matter?
No, because the other point is it's kind of a new theory that I had watching it this last night, and it's as Desmond unhooked the cork. You know, we've been told by Jacob about the cork in the bottle and how that keeps the evil at bay, and that this island is the cork. So why not think of the island or that particular cave as a hellmouth, like in Buffy? Now that cork is in there and it's flooded with water, keeping the evil at bay. As the man in black's body went down, maybe dislodged, a demon or an evil spirit goes into him, and then off he goes. He's out into the island, but the cork is still in there. They unearth the cork. The water all fades away, which is keeping that doorway closed. Boom, hell on earth, until you can put the cork back in.
Freaking love this guy. He takes everything to this whole other place.
So the man in black, not necessarily evil, but the island is still something that's protecting the world from worse stuff or worse things. Everyone being happy in the Flash Sideways, you know, this is our characters who were once lost now being found. You know, they're living through these moments. That moment where it clicks and they awaken, that is them being found. Therefore, everyone's happy. That also leads us on to the church scene where you're saying that certain characters are missing. I think that was a conscious choice by the creators because they wanted to end on a happy note. So it's all happy couples. The only two people that went stag is John Locke and Boone. And I think they had to have those because John Locke was such a pivotal character and Boone was, you know, an early death and someone that we related to, and he needed to be there for his sister. It's another reason why Saeed is with Shannon as opposed to with Nadia, because we need that happy island life. So everyone in that church is a couple.
Sorry.
Say that again, Kenny.
I said, I'm sure there's Tinder in heaven. You don't have to go. You go stag. It's fine.
No, I don't want to go.
Yeah. Heavenly Tinder. It's really good. Sorry.
And then finally, man of science, man of faith. Everyone's always thinking Jack and John. Really, it's all Jack. He starts off as a man of science and he becomes a man of faith. And, you know, the show begins from a scientific point of view and ends with a very spiritual place. So yeah, that's kind of, you know, that whole treating the island as a hellmouth thing, that literally came to me today. I've never thought of that before. I've watched the show 8 times. Maybe it's because I've recently rewatched Buffy. But yeah, I mean, they quite clearly, you know, just like within in the church with Jack's dad, very obviously telling people, you know, this is what happened. This is that. We had that same conversation, but with Jacob and Richard, and it was the bottle with the cork, and it was saying, you know, this island protects the world from evil, not necessarily the man in black. You know, I think these were stories that, you know, he's existed on this island for all this time, and all he's ever known is what he was taught by Mother.
Luke, I think you need to reboot this series once you get your channel up and running and just do a whole another breakdown of Lost all the way through again.
Yeah, I think if I watched Lost again with Hydra, my enjoyment of that show would just skyrocket through the roof. It'd be like, this is a whole new show.
If the only legacy of my Get Lost series is that more people follow Luke on Instagram and YouTube, then I will be a success.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So Ryan, for you, this episode, this finale, what was working or not working for you?
I'll pick one example of each in
Okay.
the interest of brevity. I think, as we touched on earlier, the lack of John Locke was a big bummer, and I think getting to see a fully actualized, like positive John Locke in the Flash Sideways was a very nice treat in this season. That for me, I definitely overlooked the previous times I watched this show because I was so focused on everything else that was happening. I didn't have time to appreciate like just pure Locke, like that we get the real John Locke in the Flash Sideways. So I liked that, even though I'm not really the biggest Flash Sideways person. However, like you also mentioned before, the characters of color, I specifically felt like, well, Saeed was already gone in this finale, but Jin and Sun, especially, like in this, oh, they were gone too. They didn't do anything. They were very short shrifted. I didn't care for their lack of storyline, and also I think Claire in this last season was a big bummer, and she felt kind of just like an add-on to the rest of the crew. And I'm glad she was one of the the Ajira 6 that made it off the plane in the end.
Ajira 6 of them.
But I don't know. I would almost rather have had Claire just disappear in the woods and never be seen again. I think that would.
I will say, yeah, for me, like one of the biggest fails of season 6 is Claire. Like I don't know how she becomes a worse actor. I feel like over the run of the show, the hair, the insanity, that she's like crazy one episode, she's rational the next episode. They tried to make her like a Danielle storyline, but they could never give her half the story that felt like there was living inside of Danielle's backstory.
If maybe they give her a full episode instead of Across the Sea, like see what Claire was doing while they were gone.
Do it.
That would have been cool.
I'm in.
Yeah.
So I was always really disappointed by what they did to Claire, but I felt the same way in season, 4 when they did the same thing to Michael. I felt like Michael just when he was getting his redemption, he gets axed and we never see his ass again. I'm cursing a lot more than I usually curse on my own channel, so I'm sorry about that. Hey, this is for adults, just in case.
Yeah, the Lost finale will do that to you.
Right.
Trying to be like Canadian.
We're already at an hour, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface. But I just want to go two more times around. I want to talk about, firstly, like the legacy of what do you think should be, and what do you think is the legacy of the show. Bueller, how do you feel about it?
I think the legacy is originality. I think I never saw a show like it before. I've never seen a show like it since. And I think that goes a long way in television to come up with an original thought and an original idea and make it work like it did. So the simple fact that they brought the production value from season 1, the first pilot episode, and I felt like I was watching a movie and I was instantly hooked. That's a legacy that I think will go a long time. And just interweaving with a huge cast. I mean, this is a gigantic cast of characters in and out from season to season that they have to deal with, and not a lot of shows can handle that. And I thought they did a pretty good job. And all in all, when I think about appointment television, this is one of the last shows that would be qualified for me as appointment television to go watch.
Definitely.
It was on I'd be there waiting for it to watch. This was before binge was a thing,
Sure.
And besides this one, the only one that comes to mind is maybe Breaking Bad that I can think of that is just a point I gotta be there when it's on to watch.
Ryan keeps giving me a dirty look every time someone says Breaking Bad because I've never gotten beyond the second season. So
does Ryan not like Breaking? He probably struggled.
No, he loves it. For me, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. I'm a parent. I really don't want to watch somebody who just go through the wormhole and just trash himself in that. It hits too close to home. Like I don't want to see somebody implode.
You're afraid
because they're a teacher.
You're afraid
and
it'll
the
turn
medical
you.
system is failing them and their family's falling apart.
It
Like,
will inspire you to sell meth. I promise.
It's going to turn you.
I don't want to watch it. I'm worried I'm living it. So,
but no, I think
It's a lot like
Really
Buffalo West Backyard.
All right, then watch The Americans instead.
that's what I was going to highlight. Gore Vidal said that as well.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
mentioning The Americans.
Yes.
Sorry, Bueller, you can keep going. Sorry.
Just an all-time classic. That's to me, that's the legacy of Lost. An all-time original series classic that came on the scene when there was nothing out there like it. And look, there was all sorts of shows that tried to do it after that came out, and they were like, "Oh, let's do this and this type of concept." and it didn't work. They couldn't do it, you know. This one pulled it off, and I think that's what's going to last. And as far as network television, and some of the best shows we've had for network television, so we're pretty lucky to have it.
I was going to type in a little thing for Bear Island. I don't think the legacy of Game of Thrones is that it was the last appointment television. I don't think that's going to be the legacy of Game of Thrones, but we'll keep rolling over to Mr. Miracle. As far as the legacy for Lost, or the legacy that it should be, or the legacy that it is, how do you reflect on that?
Well, it definitely has a legacy. I mean, 10 years in, right? I mean, we still haven't Lost shows, and we still get fans, and we still have super fans. I think its legacy is going to be like one of the things, like Travis was saying, Bueller there is original, right? Like that's what pulled me in. I had never seen a show like Lost before on television, especially network television, with like big mysteries and magic, and you know, could be science, and, like people getting shot and characters, and I was like, wait, whoa, what is this, right? Like it was different, and that's what drew me in. And I know a lot of people complain about there were some slow parts in whatever season of whatever time, but if you really, you know, pushed your way through it, season 5 was a big payoff, and season 6, if you're a good fan of the show, season 6 had a lot of really good stuff for you, right? Like tied in a lot of stuff. The finale had a lot of good stuff for you. Maybe it wasn't presented in the best way that you wanted to, but I think overall, Lost is going to be one of those shows that people 20 years from now will be like, yeah, I love that show, right? Like it'll be a Star Trek of its time. Ooh, ouch, did I see that?
That's powerful. I love it.
I'm going to get somebody, or get myself in trouble, Trekkie and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that it has enduring. It has great characters. It has a great story. It has mystery. It has all kinds of great television writing in it, and it has one of those enduring qualities to it, in my opinion. But I mean, I'm a fan, right? I mean, and if we want to do Star Trek again, there's people that hate Star Trek. There are. I can go talk to my wife. She's not a fan of Star Trek. And, you know, if we want to talk about greatest final episodes ever, Star Trek: The Next Generation definitely should be on that list.
Yeah, it's a good one that we didn't come up. I appreciate you mentioning it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, for Lost, its legacy will be its creativity, its fan base. Right, there are super fans out there. We're talking with one here, Luke, and you know, and there's people that don't like it, do like it, but everybody's kind of got an opinion about it, right? Like there's a lot of shows out there that, like, you talk to people with The Wire and they love it, or I've never seen it. Right, you know, but everybody's got something to do with Lost.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kenny, what about you? What's the legacy of Lost, or what should it be?
Yeah, well, for me, it was like because currently, when I get invested in a good show, like Watchmen, or the best reality show of all time, 60 Days In, which is a great show on A&E about people getting locked up in prison for 60 days on a reality show. But aside from that, now part of my staple, when I really cling on to a show, I watch the episode, and as soon as I finish the episode, I jump onto the Reddit thread, and I discuss and read theories and chop it up and the whole thing. That's like, I do that for every show that I really get into. And definitely the first show that I ever did anything like that was Lost. I wasn't even on any kind of social media at that time. I was seeking out forums and reading blog posts. I may have read one of your blogs back in the day. I really did like seek out a bunch of websites, and I had like a chat screen name, and I was da-da-da. So that was one of the first shows, I think, that really embedded that into the TV show watching experience, you know, the theorizing and all that shit. So yeah, I think that's one of the bigger trademarks of that show, is that it's probably the first one that was like the big discussion centered show. In the
water cooler, man.
Yeah, water cooler all the way, and theorizing, like Game of Thrones that Bear brought up. There's a lot of theorizing there. Even though you had books to support it, there was still, especially once you got past the books, theorizing
Yeah.
what's gonna happen, that.
Don't get me started.
Moth, I think, was the first one that like tons of theorizing. So that's probably the legacy, and it was the biggest budget pilot, right? So I think it probably elevated what you could expect from network TV too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, Luke mentioned having a few unanswered questions of his own from the show. In the end, he's like, I still have things. We all have things, I think, unanswered from the show. You can feel free to use some of your time for that if you want. But I was really just looking to feel you out on what do you think the long-term legacy of the show is or should be.
Well, really, it's I spend so much time trying to convince people who gave up on the show to rewatch it.
That's awesome.
I think, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I don't like it when people didn't watch it and then say that it was terrible. Like you said before, when they watched seasons 1, maybe 2, dropped off and then watched the season finale, and you always get the same questions. It's like, what is this? What is that? And it's like, well, they don't answer it in the finale. They answer it 2 or 3 episodes in season 4. You get the answers and the questions throughout. So I've never yet found someone who's actually dedicated full amount of time and says that they flat out hate the show. There's always something that they like, something that they didn't, which is, again, you get that in every TV show. So I respect people that actually give it the time. So yeah, I spent TV didn't exist this way. This was way ahead of its time. Like we've all mentioned, there hasn't really been anything that's come close. The closest thing that I can think of that's come close to this show is The Leftovers, which, again, same creators. If you're gonna do one of these streams about The Leftovers, John, I'm right here. Lots of opinions on that.
You do.
But yeah, it's way ahead of its time, and there's I think people are trying to capture that same magic that it once had, and I think we are coming to the end of this sort of binge watching television. I think all these shows like Netflix and Disney Plus and everyone else are realizing that they can't keep their audience if they keep throwing stuff out,
Right.
season blocks at a time. So by staggering it week by week, they're going to keep their audience for longer, and all that money's going to come in. So I think we're going to go back to that way of television. So yeah, who knows? Who knows what who knows what the legacy of Lost will truly be? As long as there's still DVD releases and it's still streaming online, I think we're always going to have a new audience.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what do you think is the legacy of Lost?
The downside of going last is everybody keeps stealing my points. So I was literally just about to say that about the rise of or the decline of the binging. Like I think The Mandalorian is a really good example of a step back into week by week releases and having the conversation, which is something that you miss with like Stranger Things or Umbrella Academy when they drop the whole season all at once. And like, I know me, I never get to those right away. And if I want to talk about it with somebody and they're already done with the whole thing and I haven't even started, and then you're waiting to make sure everyone's on the same page, and by the time I finish, they're already like 6 months done and no one's on the same.
It's that appointment TV thing that Bueller was talking about.
You got to keep everybody on the same page. And every single Friday, everybody except for you and I was geeking out over The Mandalorian and how awesome it was. But you have that conversation and the water cooler aspect of it, which is exciting to see that coming back, because I was really not a big binge watching fan.
Sure.
Even though I do enjoy doing it, but it doesn't have the same conversational water cooler aspect that Lost did.
Sure. And I will say, like, I've made the point several times over on this series, but I do feel like it's unfair to compare Lost to most other shows. A lot of this panel has mentioned that it's a very unique show that stands on its own in a lot of ways. And in the era of binge watching or in 10 episode season shows, to have a show that ran, in some years they had 26 hours of television that they ran in a season. They had commercials. They couldn't do nudity. They couldn't do certain kind of violence. They couldn't do language. They had all of these like commercial break elements that they had to accommodate, and to do 26 hours with, in some cases, a similar budget to a 10 episode show. And I just think it's impossible to compare it. I know there was until the Game of Thrones finale, there was a lot of comparison to Game of Thrones. And I felt like it was unfair. I think it felt unfair to Lost in a lot of ways. and I think that the legacy. I wish the legacy was creativity and originality and doing something outside of the box, but I think the legacy is like people look at it as a warning, like don't pull a Lost, don't do what Lost did, and I think that that's a shame because I think you're missing so much quality for, in my opinion, and I do think a large majority of the people that hate on Lost missed huge chunks of the show. I mean, Mr. Miracle and Comic Head have had some great criticisms, but clearly they still really like the show, and they don't feel like they wasted their time watching it, or in this case, rewatching it because I asked them to. I think the people that just flat hate the show and think it was worthless missed things and did not watch the entirety of the show. And I wish the legacy was the creativity and originality. I don't know that we have time for a full other round. We've already been an hour and 16 minutes, but I want to do like maybe a speed through round. One of the things that made Ryan and I friends right off the bat was when he posed a question to me on Instagram one day. He said, if Lost were a comic book, what did you want it to be about? And so the question I want to kind of whip around to all of you is, if Lost were to reappear in some form, movie, TV, reboot, sequel, comic book, whatever, what would you like that to look like? Bueller?
I already said it. It's the Ben Hurley dynamic. Just a buddy comedy
half hour.
Yeah, I think that would just be hilarious.
Nice.
Just Hurley dealing with what Ben has done in the past, and Hurley trying to put a positive spin on it type thing. I think that would be a lot of fun with just like a new group of people coming to the island like every week type thing. So that's what I would like to say. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Sure. What about you, Dave?
I think for me, it would be a prequel. It'd be more about, how the Dharma Initiative was getting on there and what kind of trials they went through, getting all of that stuff set up and figuring the island out fresh. That would be kind of cool to me. Like, it would be like the only plausible Lost group, going in there that they could build a show around. And I know I criticized, but my criticism is for the last episode. Lost is my favorite television show of all time, man, by far.
Well, and I mean, even when Ryan and I went through season 6 and had things that we liked and didn't like, we could complain about Claire all day, but then the second we get to the episode about Richard Alpert, Ab Aeterno, we're both just gushing over how, for me at least, it's one of my 5 all-time favorite hours the show ever made.
Yeah, great.
And I think even when it was, roller coastering the ups and downs of certain seasons, there was always gold to be found.
Yeah. But if I was gonna see like a revamp of the show, I think I'd like to see the beginning, like how the Dharma Initiative got there. What's all those scientists like?
Sure.
How were they figuring they were gonna harness this energy? What were they gonna do?
That sounds great. Yeah, I dig that.
Nice.
What about you, Kenny?
I think for like a prequel TV series, I'm with Miracle on that of Dharma. For a comic book, like you said, for me, comic book, I would say, because one of my favorite moments of the show was, I think it's, what season do they do Flash Forward? Season 4, right? Flash Forwards?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes is the Flash Forward introduction to Saeed when he's like a hitman on the golf course, right? So my comic it's a mashup of 2 things that I want to see more of. Flash Forward Saeed Assassin, right? And almost Mandalorian-ish, where he has to be the guardian of a very special young boy who has mysterious powers, and he has to make sure evil Dharma doesn't get their hands back on this young man who can, kill little birds and shit. His name might be Walt. I would like to see Saeed, guardian of, having to look out for Walt as Dharma's coming after him, and like the adventures of that in a comic. Cool.
I will say that was almost exactly the Saeed stuff aside, it was my first response to Ryan was, I want a Michael and Walt story. I want to know what Walt does after he leaves the island. I want to know that story. I want to understand his shining powers or whatever he's got. I want that story.
And I said the Dharma prequel comic. So we're kind of all on the same page here. It sounds like.
Yeah.
All right, so Luke, what would you like to see the next version of Lost be?
How far along are you on it?
The only character that I would like to see return would be the island itself. I don't think we need to see anything from what we've already received. I don't think we could hear about Jacob, but we don't need to see him. The island has been around for such a long time, before and after this show, that we can pick and choose what we want to see and what stories we want to tell. So I want to see the island come back with a whole set of new characters. That way it doesn't tarnish what we already have.
Sure. And I will say, when I mentioned to Ryan that I wanted to see a comic book or something that covered the story of Walt, I imagined it as a story that would end with him in the end returning to the island and being a part of whatever disaster end came to Ben and Hurley. And the next phase after those guys, whatever that would be, would have to involve adult Walt. And so that's kind of what I wanted to see was like a little bit like you're saying.
I miss. And they're like, well,
yeah,
we got to catch you up on a lot, bud.
Yeah, exactly. How long do you have? I think the show Bueller and I did was almost 2 hours long. So Bueller's still taking the vitamins after all that. So we are going to get off here. It's been an hour and 22 minutes. I really want to thank all these awesome gentlemen who came on here and all of their channels. I put the links for their in the description below. And there's a playlist for the series. You can go and watch all the things. If you decide to go back and rewatch Lost, and you're like, hey, what did the guys think of season 3? Dive in with Mr. Miracle and I, and you can hear all about it. So it's all in there. I want to shout out Luke too, because he's got some amazing collectibles. You can even see next to him there, you got Charlie's Virgin Mary statue. No drugs. It comes free of drugs.
I don't want it.
Free of drugs. Amazing pieces. Luke, where can they find some of that stuff?
The best place to find me at the moment will be Instagram. I do have a link to my eBay store on there. None of this stuff is currently on eBay at the moment, but yeah, get in touch and I can make it happen.
Nice. Awesome. Does anybody have anything they want to shout out coming up on their channel coming up here? I know Bueller's dropping videos almost every day. He's got the BS show on his Nerd Talk with Travis. Is there anything else, Bueller, that coming up here?
Yeah, there's some videos coming out. Yeah, there's a bunch of. That's it. Next.
What about you, Dave? Is there something coming up you want to let people know about?
I just dropped another 500 value today, but that's about it.
That's a great series. If you guys don't know, Mr. Miracles, Dave's going through, and he's been always really great about highlighting comics that are not hitting their potential yet. And I've contributed like comics that I thought were really undervalued. Obviously, he's got that sweet tat for his G.I. Joe, and I threw out the silent issue, which I still think is pretty undervalued as great comic history.
They got copies of that now.
Yeah, well, the 9/8s are insanity, but yeah. What about you, Comic Head? What do you got coming up?
Well, just before I joined you, I had a fun little get together with the pals, the NWO. We got together and I unboxed an AOK torpedo from Stone Cold Steve Whiting.
Nice.
And something to behold. Shout out to him. He's such a solid guy in the community. Really generous. So that was a good time. But as far as that's my flashback content, my flash forward content, bro.
I don't get it.
See what I do? I don't know. The only thing that I know of that's planned. Hey, me and Mr. Miracle, dude, we team up every 2 weeks on Graders Notes.
Oh,
yeah, man.
Comic book analysis TV show, YouTube show, and we just did Green Lantern 85. My Ward is a Junkie issue. Next in 2 weeks, we're doing what's the book? Miracle's going to show you. It was his pick.
It's already on it.
So he's about to show you.
That's our pick for next week.
Boom.
Ooh,
That's
Black Panther. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a True Believers out of this one, right? So everybody can buy that for $1 and join in our review
Yeah.
That's the one we did yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that was great.
Yeah.
Classic issue.
Follow along, man. Myself, Genome, Mr. Miracle, and Mr. Metarog himself. We all get together and grade it on different criteria. So it's a good time. Check it out.
Awesome. And then, like I said, Luke, he's got an Instagram. You can jump in with him. I tagged his channel down below, but he is just starting his YouTube career here. What do you have in mind this year, Luke?
So I intend to launch Hydra Collectibles at some point this year. I'm not sure how soon it will be, next few months or so. The whole idea of the name Hydra Collectibles is that it can resemble so many different things. You know, the Hydra being the mythical beast with multiple heads, so each head being a different collection. So we'll talk about comics, TV shows, films, the lot. So yeah, I'll definitely hit up a lost channel and hopefully get you guys to come back on. But yeah, it's early days, but I intend to put myself out there and try and make this work.
Awesome. And definitely check in on him on Instagram because he's got some great collectible pieces there that just will blow you away, especially if you're a Lost fan. Absolutely amazing. I tagged Comic Tom 101 for Ryan. So if you want to check out and see more Ryan content, that's where you go, unless you want to watch Ryan not play video games as often as he used to play video games.
Yeah, bring it back, Ryan.
I'll try. I'm just not streaming the video games that I'm playing this time.
That was fun.
I will say this weekend, Ryan and I are going to be all across the YouTube nation. So you just keep an eye out. Tomorrow morning, of course, we're going to be on the couch with the girls reading Saturday morning comics. So you definitely got to jump in for that. We're going to be on the late night show if Perry is still rolling here in the next few minutes. So we're going to be jumping over there. It's going to be a whole lot of Ryan and John this weekend. So hopefully you guys watch the social media explosion.
Yeah, this weekend is geeking irresponsibly with John and Ryan.
Absolutely.
I like it.
I got the son I always wanted.
Aw.
No, you didn't. I promise. I will crush your dreams imminently.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, especially for Luke for staying up super, super late or getting up crazy early. I do appreciate it, brother.
No worries.
Bye, guys, and namaste.
Namaste.